Hey y'all, it is Jocelyn Alyse, that mindset teacher, encouraging you to change your thoughts so that we can change the world. Friend, teacher friend, listen. Listen, so I was scrolling through Facebook, y'all, and I came across this meme. Y'all, relatable. So if you don't know, or maybe you're watching this outside of this moment in education, and I say moment because that's exactly what it is. This is not going to last forever. This is something that we are going through, which means we will, as a profession, we will get through this, y'all. But right now, we are in 2021. The COVID year, or the year of the pandemic. Coronavirus is out here. She's just acting wild. And this has forced us to teach our students remotely. So we have students at home and they're logging on to platforms like Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. And this is how they're connecting with their teachers and their classmates. This is how they are engaging in learning. And let me tell you, learning from home is not easy. It's so easy, y'all, to log on to a Google Meet or to log on to a Zoom meeting, turn your camera off, and just completely ignore what's going on. Y'all know y'all been in a staff meeting and did it, so don't play. We all feel this stress. So there may be some teachers that are really struggling with this and really struggling with the fact that they are teaching a bunch of black boxes. So I'm gonna give you guys just a few tips on some things that have worked for me to get my students to turn their cameras on. So tip number one to get our students to turn their cameras on is to give an incentive. You need to give your students, if you want them to do anything, I always feel like giving them a reason to do it will definitely boost the likelihood for them to actually get it done. So one day, y'all, story time. Every day in my class, I do like a question of the day. So students come in, and this kind of gives my students the time to log on, to pull up their journal. I always give them a journal each day. So pull up their journal and make sure they can access everything that they need to access before class starts. So my students know, they log on, they pull up their ELA journal, they make sure that they can get to it, and then they go ahead and they answer the question of the day. And one day, our question of the day, y'all, these are usually like super chill questions and just a time for us to kind of just share and be a little silly with each other. So one day, the question of the day was, if you could change your name, what would it be? A lot of students came in, total participation technique. They all dropped their answer into the chat once they had their ELA journal up. And then we came together as a class. If any student wanted to share, they were able to go ahead and, you know, raise their Zoom hand or raise their real hand and share with the class what their new name would be. Then this sprung into a conversation about nicknames. So then we were talking about like silly nicknames and stuff. And one of the students was like, oh, Miss James, you should call us by our nicknames. And all of my students know that they have to have their real name as their Zoom name when they log in. But for this day, I was like, you know what, you guys, if you have your camera on, you can go ahead and change your name to your nickname, and I will call you your nickname for the rest of the day. Now, so many of the students took advantage of this because they started changing their nicknames to things that they just wanted to hear Miss James say. Like, one of the students changed their nickname to I Farted. So as they were sharing and we were going through our work that day, I would, like, they raised their hand, I'd be like, oh, I farted. What do you think? What do you think about this? But it was a really silly moment. But I looked around in my class before I ended that Zoom, and I noticed that every student, like, kid you not, every student in my class had their camera on. So just that little incentive of you can change your name in Zoom was enough to get my students to really turn their cameras on and being able to see their faces as we were going through the lesson. I know a lot of teachers use things like Class Dojo, so you could also do something where you drop dojo points on students as they come in. If they, came in on time, if they have their cameras on, and really just allowing students to earn some type of reward, some type of incentive, and even thinking about the students who are always turning their cameras on and maybe sending a positive message. And students talk, like this is just real life. Students talk and they love to brag. So when I sent home a positive message a couple times for some students, they're like, oh, Miss James, my mom said you call her, or my mom said that you sent her a text. And they did this like in front of the whole class. So it's really anything that you feel like your students would buy into, whether it's something big where you do a party, or maybe a lunch bunch, or if it's something small, just like you can change your name in Zoom if you turn your camera on. Whatever incentive that your students will buy into, you know your students best. So anything that you feel would get them to engage would definitely help. Another thing that has helped me to get my students to turn their cameras on is something that I call, and I know other teachers call it this as well, fun-tivities. So it's just a fun activity that you do. And when I think about fun-tivities, these are things that I do literally just for fun. So it's not something that I'm doing where it might not even relate to content at all. I'm not assessing the students on this. It's literally just an activity that we're doing to build community and trust with one another, just having fun inside of our classroom. So I would do this thing every Friday, called Funny Friday, and I would literally make an announcement in Canvas. That's our LMS, our learning management system that we use. So I would make an announcement and say, hey guys, if any of you guys have any jokes for Funny Friday, you can inbox them to me. And students would send me messages of these super corny dad jokes. And I would literally, on Fridays, I would read them. Just by doing this, I also noticed that when I would read the jokes or when I would laugh, or I even made a comment, I was like, I don't know if you guys think these are funny or not. Like, I can't see your faces. And I noticed that a couple of students started turning on their cameras. Or when I would say a joke that was super funny, I would see more cameras popping on for students to kind of show me that they were laughing. So really doing those activities that would be enhanced if students had their cameras on. Like for me to fully engage and participate in this, I want people to see me. I want them to see my reaction. So thinking of any fun-tivities, like maybe telling a morning meeting joke, doing things like I know a lot of people do like classroom scavenger hunts, or not classroom because they're at home, but scavenger hunts where, okay, friends, find something red. And so in order for them to show that they have something red, they have to do what? Turn their cameras on. And y'all, I definitely feel like once students get in the habit of doing this and turning their cameras on, it's more likely to happen. So once you give them that reason, they're more likely to do it again. So fun-tivities, definitely a great way to get students to turn their cameras on. So tip number 3 to get students to turn their cameras on is creating more small group or one-on-one moments with students. Y'all, this will help so much. When students are in a more intimate setting, they're more likely to feel more comfortable. Well, we could think about it like in terms of us being in person, and if we were really in the classroom, right? I'm having to stand in front of the entire class and say something or deliver something or whatever, opposed to me doing that in a small group. A lot of times students are more comfortable in that small group. So when we give them those small group moments and they're not feeling like they have to expose their entire home to the entire class, or they have to put their cameras on for everybody to see. And there was one important point. Y'all, I listen to so many podcasts. I don't even remember which podcast I got this from. But I know there was a parent, and she was talking about how, well, she was a teacher too. So she was talking about how she was encouraging all of her students to turn their cameras on, and she was getting frustrated looking at these black boxes. And then she noticed that her own son was not turning his camera on. So when she talked to him about it, table her, we're gonna pick her back up in just a second. So when she talked to him about it, he said that he did not know who was looking at him. And she's like, what do you mean? And he told her, when I am in person, when I'm at school, I can see, I can tell who's looking at me. But when I am on Zoom, you don't know. Like, you don't know who's looking at you, who's paying attention to you. I don't know if people are staring at me, if they're making fun of me. I don't know if this person is laughing because of me. So it was just an aha moment for that mom, and also for me, because that's so true. When we are on Zoom, we lose some of those connections that we have with people, and we also get this disconnect with people's nonverbals because we don't really know who's looking at us in that moment. And as a child, and even as an adult, y'all, as a human being, that can be intimidating. So giving them that small group moment where they can, have this limited amount of people that they are talking to and collaborating with definitely helps to make students feel more comfortable. And then once they feel comfortable in that small group setting, hopefully that will lead to them keeping their cameras on all the time. Okay, hold on, let's pick her back up. So y'all, I mentioned that this mom stopped and she talked to her son about it. And y'all, this is so important because a lot of times we notice things that kids are doing, but we never stop to really ask the kid. We might problem solve and we might think, oh, what can I do to get them more engaged, or to get my students to turn their cameras on, or to get students to unmute, but we don't stop and actually talk to the children to see what's going on. Students might have like a very legitimate reason to why they don't want to turn their cameras on. So checking in with those students and even problem solving with them could help the problem. And one thing that I mentioned just a few seconds ago really ties into our next tip, which is virtual backgrounds. So like I previously said, some students just might not feel comfortable sharing their home with their entire class. And that is totally reasonable. We could even make this a classroom activity, right? Where I show students, or we pull up a video on how to do virtual background. And one day I even made this a little content relevant, y'all. So when the students came in, I had set up a virtual background that was some women knitting a American flag during the American Revolution. And this connected directly to our content because we were reading a play called Divided Loyalties. And during this play, the daughter, her name is Abigail, she volunteers to be a soldier. And they're like, oh no, women can't do that. Y'all women's need to stay knitting, and you can provide food and do all these things, but you are not allowed to be a soldier. And a lot of my kids, like, they read that part and they were like, she can do whatever she want to do. And so they were kind of bothered by that. And so when they came into class the next day, they literally saw my background representing this thing that so many of them disagree with, and it flowed perfectly with my content because we ended up writing an opinion paragraph about whether or not we agreed with the soldier's decision to not allow Abigail to be a soldier. So you can use things like virtual backgrounds to even tie into the learning, and even asking students, oh, I want you to find something that relates to the American Revolution, or to find something that relates to whatever it is that we're learning about, and to set it as their virtual background. And students can even share with one another why they chose whatever image it is that they have. So using virtual backgrounds is a huge help in making students feel comfortable enough to turn their cameras on. Yeah, so I could not do this video without mentioning this one thing that I feel is major key to anything that we are trying to do or achieve inside of our classrooms. If we do not do this, We're not gonna see cameras on, we're not gonna see participation. We are going to struggle inside of our learning environment. So we need to build relationships. If you are a teacher, you already know the importance of connecting with your students. So y'all, I just love thinking about the science of motivation. And in the science of motivation, a lot of scientists believe that people are driven by 4 different things, right? So we have purpose, why, mastery, what, autonomy, how, and belonging, who. Most of our students, and especially the way the adolescent brain is, most of our students are typically in that who stage of motivation. This is why we stress so much relationships. This is why we stress that students need that champion, that they want to know that you care before they even care what you know. So definitely making sure that you have that connection with that student, that you are creating those moments, those funtivities, those conferences, those check-ins, those moments with your students where you can truly connect with them and build relationships. So I hope that these tips and these tricks were helpful to you. I hope that you take something away from this video, especially if you are a teacher that was struggling to get their students to turn their cameras on. If you have any suggestions, anything that has worked for you, please comment down below. If you enjoy my content, y'all, please do not forget to subscribe and go ahead and turn those notifications on. I hope you have a great week, teacher friend, and I will see you soon. Bye.